Welcome back, guys. Today we are doing the shop tour. A ton of you have been asking to see the shop space, to see the projects, see the cars, see the tools, or just kind of anything else. And that seemed like a really cool video to me, so I figured, hey, let's knock it out. I actually spent all day yesterday recording this video and got to the editing process, and I really didn't like how it came together. I was doing a lot of voiceover over B-roll and tried to make a production out of it, and it just it didn't feel real. It didn't feel like me. And so I figured, hey, the best way to do this is for us to just hang out today, for me to carry this camera through and talk about this shop while I'm actually walking through it. So we're hanging out. I'm gonna flip the camera around kind of back and forth. It's gonna be handheld, one take. Let's do this. Here we go. So the first thing I know anybody's gonna notice if you watched the first shop tour video like 2 or I guess almost 3 years ago is this place is a lot more open than it used to be, way more organized. It's a better kept space. And honestly, a lot of that comes down to Riley and his 2 years spent here in the shop. He really helped me find a sense of organization and a desire to like stay clean and, you know, work more efficiently and clean up when I'm done. And overall, it has really helped this space out. I'm really appreciative of it. It needed it big time. If you don't remember what the shop used to look like, the video is still up. It's the very first StanceWorks Disassembled episode. You should check it out. Go check it out. As far as where to start in the shop, the easiest and most obvious place to me is kind of this first bay, so to speak. And this is where I do all of the major builds. I built Rusty here, I built the Model A here, and that's why the Ferrari is parked here now. It's where the process is gonna start. And I like this spot in the shop a lot for a few different reasons. One, it's kind of one of the larger work areas without having kind of a car in the middle of the shop and in the way of things. I also really like the big windows, the natural light. It's a very photogenic space, and it's got the workbench, which winds up being a place to actually get a lot of things done, whether it's, you know, fabrication or if I've got to lay stuff out, organizing, all that kind of stuff. The workbench itself, this whole thing was actually in the shop when we moved in, although it was on the back wall opposite where it is now. So it was a big effort to drag it over. It's got to weigh several hundred pounds, but moved it over to this wall and then built kind of the pegboard back end to it. And as you can see, if you look at the work surface, it's worse for wear. It gets a lot of stuff done on it though. And I've got, you know, kind of hardware bins and some stuff hanging on the walls. I wouldn't call it the most organized thing in the world, but it is a used workbench that's always got something going on it. Underneath is mostly just storage for, there's more hardware, there's some wood. Everyone's got to have pieces of wood, you know, got to jack cars up and stuff like that. And some cylinder heads. This stuff down here is really not interesting. There's kind of like some mock-up cylinder heads we were using for, oh, I don't even remember. I think we were making headers off of one of them. And over here, this is a tubing notcher. I'm assuming plenty of you guys are familiar with this, but this is the tool that's used to cut and notch roll cage tubing together. So when you have roll cages and the tubes sit together and fit really nicely, this tool is how it's done, and it's an invaluable tool if you're going to work with tubing in any regard. They're not crazy expensive. Definitely worth it over trying to hand cope everything with an angle grinder. You do that with one roll cage and you have earned your wings. You don't need to do that again. So get yourself one of these, check them out. This one, if you're curious, it's a Bailey. I've had this one. I've had a JD Squared Beast Notcher. And I think I had one other one at some point. This is my favorite one so far. I'm sure there's even better ones out there. I can't recommend any of them. This one I've had no qualms with. It works really well. In the back corner, this is still a messy remnant of the shop. There's some big jack stands, transmission jacks, and big pieces of you know, sheet metal and what have you. Some big pieces of wood. And in the back, this is all just more storage shelves, lots of cans of spray paint, lots of car cleaning products, some storage drawers, storage shelves, you know, that kind of stuff. It's really not interesting. The car here, of course, is the Ferrari 308, and I have to assume most of you guys are familiar with it at this point. If you're not, it has kind of reinvigorated my participation in YouTube. So please go check out the kind of 2 of the 3 most recent videos on this thing. We're going to be turning it into a race car, and I'm really excited about how this car is going to come together. I've got another video coming up, hopefully here in a few days. I might save it until after Christmas, but it's going to be awesome. I've got some big news coming for it. So I thought I was going to get this done all in one take, but my phone alarm went off, and then the neighbor started using a leaf blower inside of their unit, so had to cut. We're back. We're at the second bay, and as I mentioned in the very first video, the very first shop tour, I don't use this thing as often as I probably should. I find it kind of a pain to get cars onto, but you can't deny the utility of a 2-post lift. Highly recommend one if you've got the space for it. Right now, this thing's got the E30 on it. And the E30, if you somehow missed it in the last episode, is my track car. It's an 87 European gray market import, and it's a pretty cool car. It's really far from being what I would call nice. It's very rough, and it is formerly a CCA club race car. So it's lived its life on the track, and it shows it. A close look at this thing shows it is not imperfection free, we'll call it. We'll be polite. But it is a really cool car. It's got lots of really cool parts on it. It's got Brembo brakes. It's got old school double adjustable advanced design coilovers on it. And it's got the 2.5 Sport Evo motor in it, along with a handful of mods done to it. And it's really quick. It pulls really hard. It's a ton of fun to drive. And the state that it's in means I don't have to worry about driving it hard, beating up on it, anything like that. Behind the M3, if we cruise back here, we've got the best thing in the shop. It's Miss Chloe. And for those that don't know, Chloe is my German Shepherd, and she is, as far as I'm concerned, the best dog in the entire world. And she just keeps an eye on the shop, and she's laid back. This is always what she does right here. She's good. And behind Chloe, we've got my toolboxes, and I have kind of 2 that serve 2 different purposes. The small kind of half-height one here, I keep only electrical equipment in it, so it's got everything from kind of, wiring and wiring tools in it and junk on top of it. But, if we open up, it's got, multimeter, OBD2 reader, fuses, tape, crimps, things like that. And then down in the lower drawers, there's things like wire, sheathing, vacuum shrink tube, all that kind of stuff, or heat shrink tube, sorry. And then here's the Tig Welder and water cooler, along with, some blankets and towels, because they need a better place to be, but they're there for now. And yeah, overall, it's really nothing too exciting. I talked about kind of what's in this toolbox in the M3 episode as well. And on the wall is the big square here is actually the original bed for my Model A. And for those of you that are familiar with that car, we'll get over to it in a minute. But that's the bed off of it. I still have it. I've tried to come up with a way to put it on before, but I haven't figured out how to do it yet. It's kind of complicated. And hanging on the bed is actually a Porsche 935 rear fender. And what's cool about that one is it's actually off of the famed Apple liveried car. It's not on that fender, which is kind of a bummer, but that's the car. It's a pretty cool piece to have hanging up on the wall. That, believe it or not, is a Craigslist find. So we'll leave Chloe to keep doing her thing. She's going to hold the fort down over here. As we walk back, against this wall is a gigantic heavy-duty sheet metal brake. And what's really cool about this one is not only is it old, I believe it's from like 1913, it was also a kind of a machine shop auction find. And we got this thing for only, I want to say $250. It's probably the heaviest thing in the entire shop, but it's really useful. It'll bend sheet metal up to, an eighth inch thick if it's kind of a small enough piece. It's absolutely insane. So on the other side of this kind of makeshift wall is the pair of 4-post lifts. And these are new since the last time you guys saw this shop. And they're probably my favorite addition to the whole place. I know most people don't have space for something like this in their garage, but if you do, if you have the height space, it's by far the best bang for the buck. These have really made the shop space in here a whole lot more usable and have really given me a lot more square footage. As far as cars go, here we've got my girlfriend Emily's 1602. This car is really cool. It's a great driver. It's in pretty good shape overall too. It's got a 2002 motor in it. It's got an interior she's redone entirely by herself. And it's a great car. It's got really cool 13-inch Renault racing splits on it, and just all around a great driver. The only downside to it is that it does have a decent bit of rust in it, and it's more rust than we want to fix. We decided it's really probably not quite worth it. So it's just a driver. It's not a restoration piece, but that one up there is, and that one's got actually what I would think is a pretty cool story. The car up top is the car that was scanned for the Forza Motorsport games, and it's also a 1602. Looks just like the lower one, but this car has the dots all over it from the 3D scanning process. And if you've played Forza Motorsport, Forza Horizon, any of those, and you've driven an 02, you're driving that car right there. That's pretty cool if you ask me. And while I can't really pull the cover off of it, I can show you guys kind of what I'm talking about. All the 3D scanning dots are kind of left on it. And the car it's not what I would call a nice shell at the moment in terms of its overall look, but it's really rust-free. There's no rot anywhere on this thing, and it's going to be a perfect piece for kind of further restoration. Up top on the other side is a car I deservedly get a lot of flack for. It's my E36 that I've owned we're going on 15 years now. It's one of the very first S54 swapped cars ever, and it's kind of how I got my start in the BMW world, how I made a name for myself. And it's still here. It was recently fully repainted by my buddy Colin at Axis Paintworks. I guess by recently I mean a year ago, and it's just kind of been sitting ever since. On the to-do list for the E36 is pretty much just the interior that remains. I have a stockpile of parts from differentials, new subframes, all new control arms, front and rear, all new bushings for everything. I mean, I have the entire car ready to put back together, minus an interior, and I'm waiting until I have everything lined up so it can go back together and be completely done. I don't want to ruin the magic of getting that car back together and not giving myself the opportunity to fall completely back in love with it again. So the second car underneath here is my 1931 Ford Model A, and if you somehow missed that thing, it's what kind of got me started on YouTube a couple years ago, and I started a series. I didn't see it all the way through completion, and then I had a 2-year hiatus, but now we're back. This car is pretty much done at this point, minus the fact that the engine is not in it because it's getting rebuilt, and that's kind of an unfortunate story in and of itself. So the engine on this thing broke a ringland on cylinder 8, and it's now taken apart and it's getting a full forged rotating assembly so that we can make some real power and make it reliably. I'd like to get the engine back for this thing, shortly after the holiday season so we can get it back on the road and I can give you guys some content with this thing too. It's absolutely wild to drive. It's really cool to look at. I think you guys will enjoy seeing some videos, and so this thing is definitely on the priority list to get put back together. Over here is really just parts from this thing since it's taken apart. We got kind of all sorts of plumbing pieces and then the blower, the heat exchanger, things like that. And then a new set of tires to go on it, this time full-blown Michelin slicks. Once the car's back on the road, we'll swap the tires out, get it all cleaned up, blow the dust off of it, and then go blow the tires off. In the back of the shop is what used to be my old office, but it's now really just a storage room. There's really not a ton to say about it. Inside is just an air compressor, refrigerator, microwave, things like that. And then over here is my current office. It's also really not all that exciting. Inside is just a desk, a computer, and a couch, and at the moment a bunch of packaging materials because I was shipping out a lot of posters, so I'll spare you guys the mess. And then lastly is this corner room, and that's just really storage for kind of all the StanceWorks apparel. We haven't sold any in a long time, but I still have quite a bit of remaining. Might put a store up and kind of sell out the remaining stock if you guys have an interest in that, so let me know. But otherwise, it's just a nice clean storage room. I put stuff in there when I need to keep it away from the mess and the dust that happens in a shop setting like this. This corner over here is just kind of what used to be a machining corner. I've got this lathe, which my good friend Jeff Ty gave me. And then Riley had a bandsaw and a knee mill over here too, but he took those with him back to Sacramento. So I'll have to replace them, get some more tooling over here, but I do have a lathe. And I like to hang stuff on the walls over here as well. I've got lots of kind of little pieces of art, some of it posters, StanceWorks prints, some doodles from my mom, stuff like that. Some of Andrew's work, some car parts, a flag, just different things. I wind up finding a home for them on the wall. I'd like to add to it. Gives me a place to put stuff. A little bit of a inspiration wall, if you will. Can't say there's much else interesting going on over here. But if we pan over, we've got kind of the last corner of the shop, so to speak, the last quadrant. And I guess new since last time is the, what do we call them? The pallet shelving. This is orange beam here. And up top, we've got Andrew's Mini. If you recall from the last episode, nothing's really happened to it except it's been moved from the floor to the top. And then there's lots of car parts up there. Up top is also Rusty's original hood and one of the original fenders. Got, coilovers for the E36, lots of tools and storage up top, and then a grill, some rolling carts for more storage, and my Coke machine, which I'm a Coke fanatic. If you know me, I can't help but have it even if I don't really use it or put much stuff in it. And then, of course, down here, this guy is in an upcoming episode. If you want to try to guess what it is, this is the new engine going in the Ferrari. So take your best guesses. And that is probably a pretty conclusive look at everything in the shop. Should give you kind of a good overview. I'm trying to think of if there's anything we missed. There is, of course, a 1974 short bed square body sitting on top of the office. That was a project that Riley and I got started on and unfortunately didn't see through to completion, and right now it's just hanging out. I'd love to get it down someday and finish it up, but truth be told, I don't know when that's going to happen, and I also don't mind looking at it. It's a pretty cool piece of shop decoration, so it can hang out for now. And then down below, of course, I've got this big sheet metal shear. And if you guys don't know what that is, it's a really useful tool for cutting sheet metal. You basically put sheet metal underneath. There's a blade under here, and you put sheet metal in it, and you stomp on the big pedal, and it closes down and cuts stuff in half. It'll cut your fingers right off, no problem. So I think that's everything. I like to think I covered it all, but if I missed anything or if you've got any questions, whether it's about the cars, the tools, whatever, leave them below and I'll do my best to answer them, or maybe we'll shoot another video, we'll come back, we'll revisit, who knows. No matter what, I want to thank all of you for the support you're showing so far. Everything from the comments and the likes to the views, the subscriptions, everything. It means the world to me, and it keeps me excited to keep these videos coming. I'm excited that you guys keep watching them. I'm going to start working on the next episode as soon as I finish this clip. Amir's going to show up here at the shop in the next 5 minutes or so, and we're going to get going on the Ferrari. We've got some cool stuff in store today, got some cool stuff to show you guys, and I'm hoping maybe next week I'll pull the engine out. We'll find out. Thank you guys again for the continued support. Stay tuned, and I will catch you as soon as I can.